You know, I would say something funny, but you guys are not going to listen either way because Death Threats is coming. It's on the way. I'm absolutely terrified. Just before the video starts, there are a few things that need to be cleared up. First of all, I'm just a jackass with a laptop. I'm not an English major, nor am I a good English student by any means. My script is a complete mess. I need to work on this fast or else this topic will become irrelevant. Well, even more irrelevant. So mistakes are bound to happen, I apologize. Second, I like jokes. I like to brighten the mood with doing the big funnies and yeah, just don't take them the wrong way, please. Third, the purpose of this video is to critically look at the Lupisvulpes drama and potentially provide solution and the core problem. And there will be moments where I will evaluate the accuracy of the data based on factual information, therefore ignoring emotion for the sake of objective. This is in no way minimizing the experience of the alleged victims, with the following points such as emotional factor, personal beliefs and opinion, relationship experience, and potential manipulation tactics such as taking things out of context, playing victim, photo editing, cropping, and creating non-existing evidence leads to unreliable data and rendering some evidence not credible for accusations. Lastly, I just want to point out that this video might come across as defending Lupus, which to clarify, no, I do not condone anything Lupus may have done to harm others, but I also do not condone any harm done to Lupus, and incorrect information that may have been thrown around that could potentially ruin a career that was built up with time and passion. To preface, I had no idea who Lupus is until recently, and I have no bias towards her and simply see her as a fellow content creator. Alright, one more thing, very important. Before everything, please look through the following disclaimer. Yeah, I know, it's boring, but please, I can't stress enough how important a disclaimer is to the context of the video, so I beg you, read it before you flame me in the comments.
On the track, boy.
Now, with a long essay worth of warning, I shall still not escape thy fate of being roasted alive in the comment section. Without further ado, let's begin, shall we? From the document, Beware on Lupisvulpes.
Quote, Lupisvulpes, Emily Grace, is a 22-year-old furry artist and animator who is primarily recognized for her unique character design, story, and animation memes. She's a devout Christian and is very open about her faith. In 2015, she produced an animated pilot called Audience. Despite its cancellation, it remains one of her most recognizable work today. End quote.
For further information about the artist, please refer to the social media page via DeviantArt, YouTube, or Twitter, etc. You could also watch other videos created by other content creators to understand more about the artist and the context, but do be on alert for any biased information. On presumably August 19th, 2020, a document was made public under the title Beware on Lupisvulpes, where according to the document disclaimer section,
quote, this document is being written by former friends, commissioners, and other associates of Lupus. It does not intend to harm or provoke anyone. The purpose of this document is to inform and promote awareness of her action. It also exists that Lupus can acknowledge these issues and can address them, so she can change for the better. Please do not go out of your way to harass Lupisvulpes or anyone else who is mentioned in this document. Any harassment that follows the release of this document is not supported nor condoned by those writing said document, nor those featured within it. End quote.
The document contains many accusations made against Lupisvulpes with 5 main points of problem plus 1 bonus point about the response video Lupus made. The 5 main points are
Homo/transphobia, emotional abuse/manipulation, enabling predator, cultural appropriation, and tracing, misleading commissioner, and unprofessionalism.
The format of the accusation is a summary of the event of what Lupus have done, followed by links of evidence of experience and effects. If anyone wishes to see the document in detail, you can read the document via a link in the description below. This is highly suggested as you will have a better understanding from your own perspective without being influenced by others. Again, you can also watch videos made about the situation by other content creators such as Nani and Spockter. Keep in mind everything you watch has a point of bias. Stay vigilant while watching videos, including this one. Final warning. I'm sorry I have to say this one more time. Just bear with me, shall we?
This part is dedicated to critical analysis, where the accusation and the evidence are evaluated and will disclose most emotional factor for the sake of accuracy. I am in no way minimizing the experience of elected victims, but some evidence may be less considered or rejected due to lack of credibility. I will try my best to back up the reason with factual information and evidence. To critically analyze is to subjectively break down a case study by examining the evidence and information presented, then give statement based on evaluation and research.
Okay, after all that education language out of the way, let's finally start the main point of the video. Homophobia and transphobia are the most well-known parts of this drama. Lupisvulpes is accused of being homophobic/transphobic through these events. From section 1, transphobia and homophobia of Beware on Lupisvulpes.
Quote, to preface, Lupus had always been open about being Christian and hardly anyone had an issue with that. However, because of her beliefs, some people began accusing her of homophobia. In August 2015, her DeviantArt profile was bombarded with comments relating to these accusations. She quietly deactivated a couple of days later without any warning to the public. On August 13th, she made a post on Tumblr vaguely addressing her deactivation where she writes off the accusation being haters/trolls. She never directly acknowledged any of the accusation in the post. Her new account was under the name Total Strangers. She had only shared the existence of this account with a handful of friends at the time, telling them to address her as Total, so people wouldn't recognize her. Even with these extra precautions, it wasn't long until the public found the account and recognized her art. Once she was in the spotlight again, she rapidly began to gain all her former followers. She was welcomed back and never addressed the accusation of homophobia. End quote.
The link provided in text shows an archived Tumblr post made by Lupus in presumably August 13th, 2015. In post, she denied accusations closing down her account because of drama and hate-related issues, and addressed that she had problems with her own mental health. She proceeded to talk about the reason behind her deactivating the account was not because of the drama, again, rather because she wasn't feeling motivated by DeviantArt. Lastly, she informed her viewers,
quote, but I'm still going to be around, and hopefully I'll be able to do more art now. I'll be posting art on Tumblr, and of course I'll be animating for YouTube. Maybe one day I'll come back to DeviantArt, but until then, I'll doubt it'll be anytime soon. End quote.
Okay, first of all, there's only one evidence provided, which is the post from Lupus herself. This provides only one perspective and already shows that there is not enough evidence to back up the claim. Second, the provided evidence does not actually have relevant information to back up the claim that Lupus returned in October. It also did not provide in which exact year the information is presented. The document says 2015. The archive post site does not provide an annual date. This is a problem since we don't know when or how long the duration which Lupus deactivated her account. Third, the evidence does confirm that she addressed the situation because she was under hateful comments, which does back up the context of the claim. However, it also shows that she did not want to address the problem of why she was hated on, but acknowledged the existence of the drama and accusation thrown around and in fact deny the accuracy of the information. The evidence cannot prove that Lupus's denial towards the claim being false because her response is the only evidence. Fourth, the reason why she's accused of being homophobic is really vague. In the post she did say words like blessed people, and we know later on she's a very religious person. But within the context, this does not have strong correlation and does not have actual information to back up that she's getting hate because she was acting homophobic. And lastly, the claim was, quote, Lupus had quietly come back to DeviantArt despite previously stating that she would not return to the site anytime soon, end quote, where in her post she said, quote, maybe one day I'll come back to DeviantArt, but until then I'll doubt it will be anytime soon, end quote. This seems to correlate. However, she did not state that she won't be coming back to DeviantArt soon. She presumed and thought that she won't be returning to DeviantArt soon since she used the word like maybe and doubt. This is not a confirmation. Thus, if she does return in recent time, it really shouldn't be a problem. To conclude, the evidence cannot present required information to back up the claim, and the claim barely correlates to the evidence. Thus, based on my evaluation regarding the accuracy of the accusation, this is not a valid claim. From Section 2, Transphobia and Homophobia of Beware on Lupisvulpes.
Quote, Lupus's former partner, Chersonese, came out with some of his experience with Lup regarding transphobia. Additionally, there was a report of her purposely misgendering Chersonese when she spoke about him to a former friend. End quote.
Note, this claim already has some major credibility issues with the source. The source of the evidence are conversation of Lupus's former partner and friend. There are so many factors that contribute to the inaccuracy of the evidence, from the limited screenshot of the conversation, which can be taken out of context, to all the words being said by individuals with no evidence to back up their claim other than their experience. The relationship experience might also influence the information provided, and finally it is also one-sided, stating their perspective and their experience, which again can only be accounted for limited credibility. The first link provides 2 screenshots of an Instagram conversation between 2 people? I'm sorry, this is a huge problem. The conversation going on does not actually contain name or username. Now, in certain situations, this is for protection purpose, but in our case, the document already named the person. By not having the names in between conversation, we actually don't know who's talking, and that's a problem. Heck, I don't know who posted this, but for all I know, it could be just 2 random people forging evidence. But ignoring the first problem, again, is another problem. If we assume the person talking is Chersonese, and he claimed to delete a lot of things Lupus sent him, and then he proceeded to show a screenshot of a quoted message sent by Lupus on Discord.
Quote, Lup, September 20th, 2017. But people get so mad at straight people, so if I was a guy or non-binary or something, then people would be fine. I don't know, because then I'll be gay or whatever. End quote.
In any case, there's no other context given other than the sentence, and even if it is what Lupus said word by word, without context it is hard for me to judge the intent and the reason why she said the sentence. But giving Chersonese benefit of the doubt, with the given text, Lupus is expressing her frustration due to the fact that she's straight, and she's getting hate because of that. If she were gay or non-binary, she wouldn't get the hate that was causing in the current situation. But this does not correlate to the claim of being homophobic or transphobic. What she is saying is not entirely wrong, but objectively, generalizing all people is not right. And admittedly, it does sound offensive. But she's not discriminating against gay or non-binary people. She's just upset that gay or non-binary people sometimes get away from certain hate, in her opinion. Overall, the evidence Chersonese gave is not credible enough to back up the claims. The second link provides 2 screenshots of a note written presumably by Space. Here's a screenshot. Pause if need to be. Again, the immediate problem is that I don't know who actually wrote this. The image caption said it was written by Space, but for all I know, it could be some random people forging evidence. Editor's note, hi, actually I did find who wrote this. It is Space, because on later accusation, Milo's thread, there was a person under the username Space actually came out with a statement, and the link seems to match. So, yeah, it is from Space. Sorry, move on. Looking past that, I hit another problem. We don't know the context of the relationship. Did Lupus actually know Chersonese was trans? The note said yes, but cannot provide any other evidence than according to those I talked to. Just because those you talk to are long-term friends doesn't mean they are reliable information for the relationship. I cannot find any related information about Jensen. He has basically no presence online and only has a Twitter account, which is now privated. Again, let's assume everything said here is true, where Lupus did misgender her ex. We don't know whether if it's purposeful. It could be a mouse slip. I accidentally called my friends the opposite sex multiple times, or maybe she did not understand the concept of trans, etc. But all things applied. If the misgender of Chersonese was on purpose, then that would be a problem. But again, I don't think it counts as transphobic. This just shows more of the resentment towards her previous partner, which if ended on a bad turn, it's still not acceptable, but it's understandable. You wouldn't say nice things about the ex if you broke up with them in a bad way. But again, I really don't think that this is counted as transphobic, since I don't think it's directed to everyone. To conclude this section, even if we give the benefit of the doubt that all information presented is correct, the main problem with Lupus will be that she has problem dealing with her emotions, and based on previous context, knowing that she has mental health problem, it's not hard to believe that she's emotionally unstable. But none of the things she said really is directed or discriminates towards gay people or trans people as a whole. She said these things primarily targets her frustration towards a subject or a person. This is not an excuse and she should work on that, but this does not correlate to the claim of her being homophobic or transphobic. That and the terrible credibility of the evidence, I again think it's not a valid claim. On section 3, Transphobia and Homophobia, off beware on Lupisvulpes.
Quote, Lupus turned down Milo/Durenshop's drawing arcade with a transgender flag, assuming it was sexual or related to causes. This is incredibly transphobic and harmful to the trans community, in and outside it. As it has been documented for decades how harmful it is to equate being on the LGBT+ spectrum as being sick or disabled. After Milo's attempt at educating Lupus failed, one of her now longtime trans friends, Jespering, made an effort to aid the situation. Despite explaining and stressing the importance of this, their attempts also failed. Jesper goes more in depth about this and shares some of his own past experience in this thread. Milo previously had a thread showing his experience as well. End quote.
Oh, there's a lot of source analysis on this one. Bear with me. So, link 1 presents a screenshot of a Discord conversation between Lupus and one of her commissioner, Milo. The two images present Lupus communicating to Milo regarding the trans flag and ends with both agreeing on a commission. The whole conversation is on screen, positive and need to be. The third screenshot was about Milo apologizing to Lupus and Lupus replying back, and here's a screenshot, again, positive and need to be. Okay, this is great. The username is clear, context given, clearly correlates to the accusation, very straightforward. Source on this one is credible, unlike the next one. The second link is an article titled Facts About Homosexuality and Mental Health. This article is very long, so in short, the article talked about the history of events, problems, and researches done about homosexuality. Now, the major problem is that the causes here in her sentence, I don't think she refers to the LGBTQ being a sickness, more of the causes as in the movement of fighting for the cause in LGBTQ. So furthermore makes the source rather questionable why it was put in here in the first place. Second, the credibility of the source is not good due to its age. Sources that have aged has many inaccuracy due to a lot of factors. Our knowledge on a subject expands, we get better technologies, old statements are revisited and proven to have faulties, our data collection is much more efficient and accurate, etc. This article specifically uses scientific research, which means that all the factors above actually affect the accuracy of the paper. The document acknowledges that research has been existing for a long time, but just shrugged it off, and also called it documented for decades, which, no, it was written decades ago, based on researches that are done decades ago. Not documented for decades, there's a difference. Most information is from the 1900s and dates back all the way to 1901. Based on the above, this is not credible evidence, but it's okay to use it as a reference. The third link involves Jesper coming out with his statement about Lupus. It is quite a long thread, so here. I apologize for not reading them out, but we're on a time budget. Jesper then proceeds to show the whole note. Notice on screen. Again, there's a lot to cover, positive need to be. Jesper ends off with two screenshots of their convo, starting from Jesper speaking to Lupus, and lastly, here's Lupus's response. Now I'm about to sound so mean, but please. Right off the bat, this is most likely written in a non-rational state of mind. As seen throughout the bottom of the text, Jesper stating himself that he's in a lot of negative emotion right now. Now, emotion is nothing bad, and showing off your frustration actually shows your passion within something. However, if you're providing an evidence, especially your evidence is your experience and opinion, maybe having a lot of negative emotion does not help you think clearly. Emotion block out our rational and logical thinking, and when we get emotional, our brain enters a stage of self-defense. So we tend to not think straight. Again, with other statements as well, you need information to back up what you say. The source that Jesper provided does not correlate to a lot of the things he accused Lupus of doing, and Jesper is just sharing his experience, which is one-sided, and also negative mindset and relationship experience, yada yada yada. But what I see most troublesome is the response Lupus made. Let me put a pin here. We'll talk about this just in a second. The last link contains Milo's Twitter thread about the situation. Milo also threaded a few more tweets on other people's experience on Lupus. Essentially, most are in the doc, but I can't seem to open most of them. Some are private, some are deleted, or some are just can't load. So I'm just going to show information that I can open up. But that's a problem, by the way. If you're providing a source and that source doesn't open up, we don't know what's inside. So Milo starts off by saying,
quote, if a cis artist declines/refunds your commission because they refuse to draw a LGBT flag, trans flag, because it's way too sexual and related to causes, is that transphobic?
And then post the screenshots from the first link and said,
I'm sorry for not coming out sooner with proof. I have a lot on my plate. This is really hard for me to share because I was just hoping to God it was just a misunderstanding. But I don't think it's right letting this slip by just because Lupus was an artist I really liked. I still got the commission anyways because she took my money before telling me, and she kept on saying how excited she was to draw the character. I felt like I was obligated to let her continue the commission, and I felt extremely awkward and had absolutely no idea what to do. Also, please, for the love of God, don't harass anyone invoked, including Lupus. I don't want this to be a big drama or some sort of witch hunt. You guys are allowed to form your own opinion. From now on, please no longer associate me with Lupus. Thank you. End quote.
Now, dear Milo, since you don't want to be a part of this big drama, I'm gonna let you go and not talk too much in detail. But buddy, your evidence and your words doesn't match up. It's normal for an artist to take money before they do the commission. Cause, who knows, you might have just take the work in progress and run. And also, you need to back up the sentence with evidence. Quote, took my money before telling me, end quote. Cause if you can't back this up, this is just defamation. Also, your second thread, while she expresses excitement to do your commission, and that may make you feel obligated, it is simply your decision as a client to accept or decline the deal. Objectively, there's no moral obligation when it comes to a business deal. However, I understand you look her up as an artist and you felt hurt, so that you have my greatest apology, but the evidence you put out simply doesn't correlate and support your claim, and this render it invalid. And finally, for this point and the last point, I'm going to unpull the pin here. I want to conclude with the response Lupus gave Jesper. The reason why I felt this point is the most problematic is because I felt like I failed to see a problem with this response. In the response, Lupus is expressing her frustration for people talking behind her back, which is understandable. She then apologized for using the term sexual and also may have sounding offensive. Then she proceeds to point out that she respects the way other people live, which means she respects your identity, but expects the same to go likewise for her. And I think this sums up about what I want to say about this whole section, is that she is not in the wrong for not drawing the trans flag. She didn't disrespect or insult anyone who uses it, and as a matter of fact, she doesn't even need to support it. Lupus as an artist does not need to support anything. Her job is to draw, and if she feels uncomfortable towards a subject of a commission or a subject that she may not want to include in her brand, she has all the rights to decline a request, and that's not subjective. It's an objective look on what she can do. Of course, in a large fan base full of people that are in the LGBTQ, it may not be the greatest marketing move, but certainly not something people should take as transphobic or homophobic. Oh, we're almost done with the first point, keep going. Final section, transphobia and homophobia of Beware on Lupisvulpes.
Quote, another former friends of Lupus, Mags or Warm Zone, stepped forward with this tweet. It shows screens of old text messages and Twitter likes excusing homophobia and transphobia. Quoting from the message, I'm not super into gay stories, which is probably why I stopped watching Steven Universe, like the whole hidden agenda kind of thing turns me off. Writing off simple representation of LGBT plus characters and story agenda is common LGBT-phobic rhetorical. Calling one's identity an agenda or politics is quite dehumanizing. It also trivialized the representation itself, as well as those simply wanting equal rights and treatment. In this complete separate thread, she has implied LGBT to be a sickness or a disease. End quote.
The first link is a Twitter thread from the user Wormzone. This was a tweet replying to Milo, screenshot on screen, positive need be. Then there were 2 screenshots of one supposed conversation between Lupus and Worm, and a Twitter comment? I'll start with the first one. It seems to be a WhatsApp conversation between Lupus and Worm. Screenshot on screen? Okay, assuming it's Lupus, the source is credible. It is also words coming from her, but I'll put another ping here and come back later. Second screenshot. What is this mess? There is no visual context given on the screenshot, no username, just a person tweeting something. This is the same as the second section with the shares and needs screenshots. I wasn't the only person confused with the second screenshot. She gave a reply about the context.
Quote, I'm so sorry I missed this. Sure. Basically, I may not have an open mind, but I have an open heart is a code for I hate the sin, but not the sinner. That translates to, I don't support the lifestyle, but I still love the individual, which is still very homophobic rhetoric. End quote.
Now I'm gonna need you to stop right there. First, no. You don't translate for other people. That's an opinion and people need facts, which your biased translation does not present. Second, why not just present the context if you have the context? You're not only decreasing the reliability of saying it out of your own words, you're also raising the suspicions on taking things out of context. Again, same pin, hold it right there, we'll talk about it in a second. The last link is a DeviantArt thread, and it's a conversation between Lupus and 00xz. Again, the conversation's on screen, positive need be. So, what? How does this even correlate to the claim? Lupus said nothing about LGBTQ being a sickness, and simply addressed her experience with religion. And honestly, this is pretty concerning that whoever wrote this included this part. Lupus is clearly being made fun of here, and by including this, you're actually promoting harassment towards Lupus. And I'm not the only one who felt this was for insult purpose. It's right there on the comments. This is by far the least credible source and completely does not correlate to the claim, thus making it invalid. Alright, remember the ping? Good, I covered everything, so I'm going to conclude with this pin as well. Both screenshots are showing her discomfort towards LGBTQ content. First one showing that she did not like Yuri on Ice and Steven Universe because of the expression of LGBTQ stories. And second screenshot showing her openly admitting that she does not feel comfortable. That's it, right? She admitted it, the source is credible. She must be homophobic or transphobic, right? Again, I don't think she's in the wrong here for saying the things that she said previously. After saying each statement, she noticed the insensitivity with the sentence and made clear of her intention. The first screenshot she apologized for sounding negative, and the second screenshot assuming the one texting is Lupus. There's nothing wrong with what she said. You don't have to agree to someone to respect them. You don't have to like people from LGBTQ to treat them equally as others. It's not a moral obligation to like or dislike something or someone, and forcing people to like them or dislike something is just straight up harassment. Like the refusal to draw the flags, she has all the rights to dislike something if she feels uncomfortable with it, as long as she still treats them the same as others. To conclude the whole section of transphobia and homophobia, most sources of evidence provided are just not credible enough to support the claims, and the evidence that are valid rarely correlates or back up the claim about Lupisvulpes being transphobic or homophobic. And most action Lupisvulpes barely show any problematic signs of transphobia and homophobia. Based on my evaluation, there's nothing in the section that can convince me that Lupisvulpes is a trans/homophobic person that the document set her out to be. On a side note, let me ask you all a question. What if she's transphobic or homophobic? See, the document keep on saying how bad of a homophobe or transphobe she is, but I don't see her treating people differently throughout these sources. None of the cases presented above showed anything that Lupus said are just irrational insults. All of the statements are carefully made by Lupus and explained with reasons. After each post, she acknowledged the insensitivity and sometimes even apologized in advance. So, if that's the case, who's really in the wrong here to force someone to like something? So please, I beg you think carefully before you speak. And that concludes the first point. And to be quite frank, I can cover all the sections, but like, by the time I'm done with covering all the sections, it will take like 5 hours. The topic of Lupisvulpes will be furthermore irrelevant and no one will watch it. However, based on section 1, you get a sense on how flawed these claims are. And this section is what drama is well known for. I advise you to read through them carefully and think logically before jumping into conclusions. So, I'll be skipping emotional manipulation/abuse, enabling predator, and cultural appropriation. All of them are rather ridiculous considering lots of them are just emotional factor are included, and also just, section 1, lacking correlating evidence. A video I can recommend is the video done by Spockter. It's brief as well, so you don't need to hear a jackass explaining for another hour. Now, section preface. One of the reasons why I feel confident covering this point is because I have an area of expertise on the subject. Yep, you heard it right. Not only I am an art student, I am also a proud business student. To assist me, I also did an interview with my business teacher, Mr. K, which I just realized I should have told him to give a short introduction because, the source would seem more credible if he did. But regardless, let's jump into the mess, shall we? In this point, lots of business factors are covered, and I do have to say whoever wrote this section is probably not familiar with a lot of business concepts. No offense, of course, business is hard, but further on that later, let's get started. Section 1. Tracing, misleading commissioners, unprofessionalism of beware on Lupisvulpes.
Quote, on July 14th, 2020, Lupus advertised a $120 headshot commission and a chibi commission. In a private livestream on the same day, Loop decided to stream herself working on one of these commissions for the user, 90s Cat. One of the members of her Patreon joined the stream, only to discover Loop was using a base for this $120 headshot. The original listing for the commission never specified that the headshot would be drawn using a base. As it turns out, the base was recycled from Loop's keychain commission, posted around August 27th, 2019. This behavior is not only deceitful, but is akin to false advertising. Not to mention that just a few months before, her headshot were $55 and not on a base. Screenshots of the livestream can be found here, showing Loop herself tracing the commission. You can find the original keychain commission using the same exact base here, showing dates, etc. End quote.
Okay, so for this section, we're going to put a pin on the strength of the claim. I'm going to do source analysis first, and we'll talk about if the claim is valid later. Link 1% Lupus's DeviantArt post for her headshot commission. It contains information of her headshot, some of her work example, and also some comments from the commissioner and Lupus herself. The commission info is as follows, shown on screen, pause if need be. The sources are credible, date matches, the commission price and information is given based on text which correlate to the context of the claim. Second link is also Lupus's DeviantArt post about another headshot she did in February 20th, 2020. It includes an image about the price and the content of the commission, followed by a link in Etsy, which the description of the commission from Etsy reads on screen. Pause if need be. Again, a credible source comes from Lupus herself. The commission price and info is given based on text which correlates to the context of the claim. Would recommend mentioning the date of the document instead of saying a few months before. The third link presents a series of screenshots on a stream where Lupus worked on the commission. It shows the work in progress of Lupus made about the commission, and here's what it looks like. Now again, I'll analyze the claim later. For the source, in terms of credibility of the source, yes, I do think it's credible. The end results of the work is the same presented to the commissioner in the DeviantArt conversation. The icon of the stream does seems to be Lupus. Also, the tool of trade and the little animation icon below all contributes to that it is Lupus' stream. The only unreliable source is that the submission is anonymous. We don't know who, thus we don't know any personal factor that might contribute to the credibility. The last link presents a presumably deleted post on DeviantArt about examples of character keychain commissions Lupus did. The screenshots on screen, pause if need be. Credibility-wise, it is still quite reliable since it is still from Lupus. Also, the text supports the claim of the context. Presenting the prices and more information about the commission would be more helpful since the price is not stated in these screenshots. We're done with the sources. Okay, good. So based on what we see, the sources are actually credible. So does that mean the claim is valid? Well, absolutely not. Sorry with the absolute sounded very biased, but the point is, though the sources do correlate and back up the claim, it does not mean the claim itself is correct. What do I mean by this? Let's talk about it. First point, tracing the base of the other commissions. Now the first claim is that she traced the base of the previous commission, which on the screenshot does seems like she has traced the contour of the face. The claim was, quote, the original listing for the commission never specified that the headshot would be drawn using a base. This behavior is not only deceitful but is akin to false advertising, end quote. Now buddy, first of all, you're making strong claims. Now let's see what false advertising means. From Google, Wikipedia,
Quote, false advertising is the use of false, misleading, or unproven information to advertise product to consumers. The advertising frequently does not disclose its source. One form of false advertising is to claim that a product has a health benefit or contains vitamins or mineral that it in fact does not. End quote.
Now, let's also hear Mr. K's explanation.
In terms of business, I would say that false advertising is anytime that you promise something or suggest that a product does something and the product is different than that. I think it's a very broad term and people might misconstrue it, but I also think that there are certain promises that brands make with their advertising, the way that they advertise a product, and if they don't live up to those promises, then that can be considered false advertising. An example of false advertising. I guess like there are examples of like Instagram ads or other times on the internet where they're selling goods often. So for example, like I went to buy a pair of Yeezys on Instagram and it said that they were all like legit, everything was good. And then when they actually arrived, they obviously were quite different than the actual brand name Yeezys. And so they advertised them as Yeezys and didn't sell them as Yeezys. So yeah, they were selling a product that they had promised that was a certain type of product, but it was obviously a ripoff or different. And so there are examples like that, I think, all over the internet.
So now with all the information in mind, let's go back to Lupis's commission page, and this is what she advertised.
Quote, I'm opening for 2 kinds of commission today. You can choose between a headshot, line similar to this, the headshots are $120, and the other option is chibi or pre-existing characters, and they will be looking like this. If you need more example, let me know. These commission will be $120 as well, per character, end quote.
So what did she promote about the product? A headshot for $120. Did she promise anything else, like the process of making the headshot? No. Did she give what she promoted? Short and simply, yes. There is absolutely no mentioning about using base or not. All she advertised is promised a headshot, nothing more, nothing less. In short, is this false advertising? No, absolutely not. Now, I know what you're thinking.
But Dipper, isn't this deceitful?
Well, my friends, I don't know if you heard of this motto before, but there's a saying, especially around the animation industry. Work smarter, not harder. Listen, just because it was drawn from a base doesn't mean the piece is not original or the end of the world. All artists, when drawing, need to start from a base. But if you have an example of the base, why would you waste more time drawing another one from scratch? Not only it saves time, it also makes your work more consistent, which for Lupis might be what she is aiming for. Creating consistency actually helps establish brand, and making you work faster while keeping the quality.
Side note, now beginner artists, no, that does not mean you should start drawing from base as well. Lupis is an industry artist who has worked many years and already has the skill and knowledge to draw from scratch. It will be a waste of time for her to draw the base over and over again. You, as a beginner artist, however, do not have the experience, and when you do draw from base, you might not know how to actually extend from the base.
Also, based on the screenshot, all the other processes are done by her and not traced from anywhere, so this claim is completely invalid. Next, they claim Lupis's commission is too expensive. Quote, not to mention just a few months before, her headshot were $55, and not on a base. End quote. So, okay. The next part is pretty important to anyone who does commission or is planning to do commission, and if you're watching, Nani as well. Before anything, let's hear from Mr. K, shall we?
Is it okay for business to rise or to raise the price of a product
even if like most factor, quality factor, remains the same?
Yeah, raising the price of the product, there's no moral issue with raising the price of a product. If people want the product, selling a product is a relationship and an agreement between two parties, right? Nobody's forcing someone in the free market to buy a product. Obviously, there are examples where that's not true, but for the most part in the free market, no one's forcing a person to buy a product, so whoever is selling the product can sell it for whatever price, and if the buyer wants to buy it at that price, then they are able to and can make a profit off it. And if the person who's buying it doesn't want to buy it, then they don't have to. No one's forcing them to.
Did y'all hear that? There's absolutely no moral issue with raising the price of a product. Nobody's forcing you to buy a product. Whoever is selling it can sell it at what price they want, and whoever is buying it can buy it at that price if they want to. But okay, I know most of you aren't convinced, so let's talk about it. Is she overpricing her commission? Let's listen to what contributes to the price of a product.
There's lots of different things that can influence the price of the product. I mean, our most common graphs, as I think we were just talking about, was supply and demand graphs, like where you're looking at basically how much do people want the product and how many of the product do you have, and so you try and offer that product at the highest price that is possible while selling the most amount of goods, so that you can get the most revenue.
Now, the only thing Mr. K talked about here is the demand and supply, which looks something like this. You guys can watch this video for better understanding. But for those of you who didn't want to watch it, the demand is whenever a product is at a lower price, the customers or the consumers are more inclined to buy. Whereas the supply is the opposite. The more people demand, the higher you should charge a product. Other factors that especially influence the price of a commission are
Materials. What materials are you using? How much do they cost? The more expensive your materials, the more you should charge. Fees. Are you using any copyrighted materials? Do you need to pay for that? If your commissioners are using copyrighted characters, you might need to pay the permission fees for it at that in the price. Reliability. How well do you communicate to your commissioners? How long do you take to work on it? Or do you have your commission done on time? The more reliable you are, the higher you should charge something. Delivery cost. Do you have to send the work physically anywhere? Make sure to add that in your price, or at least calculate it. Tax. How much is the tax fee? How much tax do you need to pay each month? Make sure to check that and evaluate the price you earn or the profit you earn by the end of your month, and make sure to add that value into your prices. Work hours. How long do you have to work on a piece? The more hours you take, the more you should charge depending on the mark you need to hit per hour. Art quality and skills. How good are your pieces? It's subjective, but your skill is obvious when compared to other pieces. Charge higher, the better your skills. Stylization and popularity. Are you popular? Is your style recognizable? Is your name recognizable? The more popular you are, the more you should charge. The more unique or required your art style, the more you should charge as well.
There are two videos I can recommend that explain this in better detail. For any Chinese speakers, you can check this video out by Dodo Town, and for any English speakers, you can check this video out by Crown Prince. Titles on screen, link in description. With these principles, you should realize by now why certain artists at the same level can have such a life difference, and why certain artists with skills who's better than another artist could be doing worse than them. Again, I can go on for hours and write a new essay about why I think Lupus charged her price pretty fairly, but that's going to take too long, so here are some short points.
Lupus is a fairly popular artist. She has a considerably large fanbase who demands her commission. Since she has the demand, she can increase the price. Lupus has the skill to do art in a great quality, thus she can charge more. Lupus has a recognizable, cute art style. She can charge more based on that. Lupus seems to be more reliable with her commissions before the drama and tend to get good reviews from buyers, increase the price. Again, Lupus is a pretty popular artist. By just making the piece, the value of the price goes up due to her brand popularity, which is also the reason why the drama is actually hurting her profits. I'll let Mr. K finish the point.
I think when you overcharge or undercharge, the big thing is that you're looking at your brand image. And so for overcharging or having too high of a price, I think sometimes people will see that as maybe an issue with branding because they don't think that they're getting the quality of product that they deserve for the price that they're buying it at. I think as long as the seller is honest with what they're selling and what they're advertising, then and not trying to manipulate or fool the buyer, then whatever price they set, as long as the buyer knows what they're getting into, then it's fair. I would say, I think it overcharging or undercharging really affects the seller, and that's like whoever is producing and selling the product. that's the person who it'll affect the most. If they're selling a product and someone wants to buy it, then that's good for them. But if they're selling a product and the price is wrong and people don't buy it because of that, then that's an issue for them. Overall, if you're entering into that agreement as the buyer, then whatever, like, you're paying for what you get, and as long as you know what you're getting into beforehand, then that should be a fair price for you. Optimum price often comes through lots of trial and error for some sort of products. Like, you might not figure out the optimum price you might never figure out the optimum price, and you might be operating at the wrong price often. I would say a lot of market research goes into the optimum price, so comparing yourself against competitors or people who have sold it previously, trying to figure out like how much you need to sell it for to recoup any costs that have gone into it. So whether that's like physical costs for the goods or time costs for that kind of stuff. But in terms of what the actual price point would be, that's kind of a decision that you have to make over time and through figuring out how much it's worth and what the value is to the buyers.
Also notice how Lupus charges at a higher price but only has a few slots open. It is most probable that she's testing her optimum price, which can be seen here. It's actually better for the artist to sometimes raise the price of the art. Even if you get less requests, you're actually earning more profits and more time, refer to this graph. Her pricing is fair, and though I can move on and do, other things, I made this point mainly to talk to other artists. My fellow artists, please don't undercharge your work, and also don't shame anyone else for charging at a higher price, and don't judge the price of the piece based on its quality. It's harmful to them, it's harmful to you, it's harmful to the whole industry. I'm serious. Listen to Mr. K first.
Undercharging can sometimes bring about an idea that your product does not have the quality that maybe you're trying to promote with your brand. You're trying to show that it has a certain quality by setting the price at a certain amount. So sometimes people will just assume, because of other experiences that they've had, that a low price is a low quality, which may or may not be true. Yeah, so I think the overall market is affected by pricing in several different ways. Like if there are goods or services that are priced at too high of a price, then people might realize that they don't need that product, and the necessity for that product might dwindle, and people no longer use that product. They might find alternatives to that product, or they might decide that they just are going to do away with that whole idea in general. And that's definitely a possibility. If you price your stuff too low, then sometimes the whole market will assume that the product should be offered at that price, at a low price. And sometimes that can hurt individual sellers, because those sellers are trying to make a living off it and trying to survive off of that selling that good or service. So the price point is an important thing to think about if you want to have a lasting product that will exist in the future. If you price it too high or low, then you probably won't last too long.
Now, let's set an example. Bob and Timmy both sells boba tea, and both taste similar and has the same quality. Each boba tea should be sold at $6. But one day, Bob started charging his boba at $5, and people realized that, and it tastes the same and costed less, so people bought boba from Bob instead of Timmy. Timmy, realizing this, had to change this boba to $5 as well. After people realizing that Timmy changed its price, they went back for Timmy, and everything returned to equilibrium. So originally, the boba tea can be sold at $6. Now it has dropped down to $5. You see the problem? A lot of artists are actually charging less than what they should be charging. But when you compare prices to other people in the industry, you can charge more than other artists because you give the same quality. If everyone charges at a low price, everyone actually suffers economically. So please, do not discourage to charge more money for the commissions. People pay for art not because they're cheap, they pay for art for its worth. Back to the claim. Based on all the factors mentioned above, both claim that she falsely advertised and her pricing is overcharged is completely incorrect, thus making the claim invalid. Bonus point, if you check the comments Lupus got from her commissioners, most buyers are actually happy with what they got. In fact, the $120 person tipped extra for Lupus. So if a piece brought a person happiness to the point they're paying more than what they need to, do you still think your claims are valid? Side note, don't worry, this is a long one, the rest should be shorter, I think. I'm gonna go quicker over them since I still need to cover the response video as well. Section 2. Tracing, misleading commissioner unprofessionalism of beware on Lupisvulpes.
Quote, in a similar instance, another commission she had completely looked identical to one she did in the past. Images can be found here. The commissioner questioned Loop about this, but never received a response. Due to the nature of how she creates her lineless drawings, the image does not exactly line up. However, it still is apparent that she used previous image as a reference or some sort of base. Once again, this was not advertised in the original listing. End quote.
Now the claims are, Lupus potentially traced from the first piece and quote, it is still apparent she used the previous image as a reference or some sort of a base. Once again, this was not advertised in the original listing. End quote. Oh sweet baby, this actually hurts me. How come there's so many artists that covered this document that did not see this point? You alright? No! Reference image is not only okay but highly recommended in art. You can ask any experienced artist. Here are some video explaining in detail. We need to move on. Titles on screen, link in description. And also, explain your term apparent. Seems like you got a lot of art knowledge but doesn't seem to inform people correctly. Provide why you think it's apparent. And I covered false advertising just now. Simply, not only it's absolutely fine to use reference, it is also not false advertising, the information is not presented in the first place. As to if it's a trace or not, the document claims, quote, due to the nature of how she creates her lineless drawings, the image do not exactly line up, end quote. Due to the nature of her lineless drawing? Again, are you serious? How come there's so many artists who covered this and did not notice this? Lineless arts can still be traced. In fact, Lupus's work is not even lineless. She just toned her lines to harmonize with the whole image even more. It has absolutely no correlation with tracing art. And though this is similar, these things happen. A lot of time artists get the same idea and to be honest, this just seems that it was drawn for a reference from it, nothing more. And don't you do the, oh, I'll overlay it and show you that it's a trace. Here, I'll do it for you. This, and this are all not in place. Don't say they make a small adjustment. They're just different. Get over it. This claim is biased, so is my analysis, but the claim itself is incorrect, thus making it invalid. Section 3. Tracing, misleading commissioner unprofessionalism of beware on Lupisvulpes.
Quote, Milo asked Lupus if he could commission her for the old Venus Ambassador video, with Oxy to be finished and fully animated, but to fix the ending so it wouldn't end with a suicide. Instead, Milo wanted the ending to be Oxy coming out as transgendered, rather than ending on such a grim note. After inquiry, Lupus ghosted Milo and never responded to him. Lupus then went ahead and sold the Venus Ambassador commission to Kitsu Galaxy, without telling Milo beforehand at all. Whenever Milo asked Lupus about it again, she told him she was no longer going to pick up the Oxy version of Venus Ambassador where it was once left off, because she had already taken Kitsu's money. This deeply hurts Milo, especially since he had messaged Lupus before Kitsu, and yet she still avoided him. It's suspected that this was essentially Lupus' way going behind his back to avoid working with an LGBT subject, considering everything that has happened regarding the topic in general. End quote.
Now, the problem with this claim is that the evidence provided, the link directs to a series of screenshots about the work in progress of Venus Ambassador animatic. They are on the screen right now. Read through them, pause if you need to. Just ignoring the credibility, the series of screenshots actually tells nothing of the claim other than the commissioner's work in progress of the Venus Ambassador. In fact, the only screenshot that even included Milo is just Lupus explaining the situation to Milo. Milo even agreed to it. These screenshots shows no evidence from beginning to the end of the claim. Again, we're on a time budget, so in short, the evidence does not provide information about Milo's request on changing the Venus Ambassador's ending, Lupus ghosting Milo, accusation of avoiding LGBTQ. Thus, again, due to the lack of information, we don't know for sure. The claims cannot be backed up by the evidence, thus rendering it an invalid claim. Last section, tracing misleading commissioner unprofessionalism of Beware on Lupisvulpes.
Quote, shortly after these allegations against Lupus began to go public, many of her customers began to email her about refunds. Screens of her response can be found here. As of now, the email in the above link is the only one she has replied to. Others who reached out to her over the couple of days have not yet received the message back. End quote.
Link 1 presents two screenshots of two commissioners receiving an email from Lupus. Screenshot on screen, the credibility is good since both received the same email by Lupus. Second link presents two screenshots of presumably from the same commissioner emailing Lupus for refunds and not getting a response. Again, the source is credible. It seems that the receptant seems to be Lupus. I have a problem though. In the email her name was Emily Arendt, but her name presented in the doc is Emily Grace. I think it's the same person, I'm not sure, I need confirmation. Now, I think yes, as an artist you should make a return policy and keep money on hold. But if an artist is in an urgent situation, they might need to use their money. She also promised to return the money, which again is nothing wrong, but it could have been dealt better. As to ignoring emails, it has been a long time since it happens. We're unsure if anything changed. Apparently her parents has taken over and respond these emails, which is another can of worm that I don't want to open. And Lupus could definitely check her emails more often, although just to point out, she might have disconnected with most of her social media due to people sending hate messages. Now this is not an excuse for not replying email backs to check up with your client, but it's understandable that she might be distancing herself from these situations. In conclusion of this point, the only valid accusation is the last section. Lupus should work on making better return policy and dealing with her clients despite the situation. Lupus needs to learn how to be more reactive towards her client's email to communicate any situation as early as possible. However, other than the last section, all the other points made are not valid due to lack of knowledge within the business and art. Just a side note, those are major accusations that can really damage an image of an individual. Please read through the section more carefully since the points are covered in a faster pace. Okay, we're almost done. On August 31st, 2020, Lupus made a response video on the accusation made against her. And it is also the catalyst, you may say, of the drama, because after the video was posted, an overwhelming wave of criticism hits this drama and starts to gain a lot of attention. Titles on screen, link in description. Now, I can see why this video is not well received. People want an answer, but instead Lupus kinda talked about God and Jesus for a while, so people got angry because they didn't hear a direct answer, and yikes. Some of the comments people make are questionable. Y'all need some Jesus. The problem again is that people jumped into conclusion way too quickly due to a rash of emotion without analyzing what she said, which, to be fair, if a video is about setting things clear, it shouldn't take analysis for people to understand, but let me explain. Now, I'm not religious in any way. In fact, I'm an atheist, which means the subject is not completely my cup of tea. But what I do have is a year worth of religion class knowledge because my school was a Christian school and religion class is mandatory even if you're not a Christian. So to my surprise, those stuff I learned in class actually did come in handy. So in Lupus's video, she used the word love a lot. You may think it's the love as in human chemistry, you know, and also like towards something, but in Christianity, love has another meaning. Here's a video right here, go watch it, even if you're not a Christian. It's some good knowledge for your next conversation. Finished it? Good. A short explanation because I know most of you didn't watch it. The term love actually comes from the Greek translation agape. The term describes the choice of seeking the well-being of other people other than yourself in condition where you don't benefit from it. Or in short, to care for something. So with that definition in mind, when you look at the video again, it may help you understand her better. Again, I can do another essay on what Lupus mean line by line and why, but this video is already too long, so here's my understanding on what Lupus is saying in short.
Lupus denied the accusation that was thrown around her, also claiming that she was not treated well during this period, and saying that she could defend herself in the situation but decided not to and say whatever is coming next. Lupus is stating that people are accusing her of things even without her saying anything yet, and calling her homophobic and transphobic just by guessing what type of person she is. She finds it frustrating that people are doing this, but acknowledges that this is the internet and people just do it and there's nothing she can do. Lupus is saying that hopefully people who knows her knows that she do care about people and say that she is glad to do commission for people. Lupus is saying that she does care for everyone, including those who harmed her in the process. She thinks that people who is doing all this negative things to her is most likely doing something to themselves, so she forgives those who attack her and hope that they can find meaning in their life. Lupus goes on to teach on how we're created by God, and no matter what we do, there's always a purpose in life. She also talks about how she was saved by religion during her darkest time, and think religion could save us all too. Lupus claimed that she makes mistakes, she may have said things that isn't correct, but God cares about all people equally and correctly. Lupus is claiming that she doesn't hold a grudge against anyone who attacked her, even if it was based on vague allegation. She wants us to believe that when we have problems, God can help us find the answer. Lupus goes on to teaching about unconditional love, or care God give us, and give example of Jesus dying for the sin of humanity. Lupus wishes everyone involved in the situation to settle down and find purpose again. She felt like the only apology she should have made is that she didn't share more Christian knowledge to everyone, stating that religion welcomes everyone. Lupus claimed that she never disapproved anyone on how they live, even from her opinion, because she knew that it is not a place for her to stay. This means that she denies any transphobic or homophobic accusation made against her. Lupus claims that she is held accountable for her action in her religion, so she is true to her intention. She says that she cares for the community, she cares for us, and she still cares for us, and she cares for those who attacked her because Jesus died for them. Lupus is saying that she didn't want to make a response video to please people. She wanted people to know what she does addresses the issue itself, and anything she does is a devotion for God. She claims that if she makes someone feel good, even if it means to her losing for her career, she would do so. What the quote means is that care for each other, because caring about each other steps over the mistake they have made.
Oh my god. I said it's gonna be short, but still became an essay. So yeah, it makes sense that Lupus would use Christian vocabulary to speak, and it surprises me how some Christians were apparently reacting to this video and still didn't see what she really meant. Yikes. Y'all need more Jesus. I understand what she's saying. In short, she's claiming that these accusations are not true, but instead she wants people to care for themselves first. Great message. However, it has two main problems. One has already shown its effect, is that the response Lupus made was too cryptic for most people to understand. People without any Christian knowledge might just see this video as a 5-minute preach about God. When you're making a response video, you need to make things clear and understandable. Second, it has shown how Lupus uses religion as a shield to protect her from reality, and I'm gonna be honest, I'm an idealistic person too, but you gotta face truth sometimes. The simple fix here is to actually address and prove if something is untrue, and then give perspective why it is untrue. Avoiding is not facing the problem, but rather creating for more. All of your claims in the video have no evidence other than you're saying you didn't do it. And if in any case you're at fault, just apologize. Humans are flawed, right? You said it in your own video. Then there's no shame in admitting what you have done wrong if you did anything wrong. I know you said you don't want to defend for yourself, but please gather more evidence and make another video. It's the best solution to set things right. And that's all I'm covering. Honestly, there's more content out there to cover. However, again, I don't want to make a 5-hour long video. If you're planning to look further into it, do keep in mind, factual information is one thing, opinion is another. Please be diligent while viewing any type of source, and please, rather than sending hate, maybe it would be nice to send some positive reinforcement and constructive criticism. Now, although everything is subjective, this part is just purely what I think as a person, and think from my logic and my heart. The problem of this drama is that people rushed into a conclusion without cooling down and really think about the situation introspectively. Both sides are at fault. I first have something to say to whoever contributed writing the document. I have many questions towards the motive of the document, since there's a lot of questionable factors. First, the majority of Lupus's audience are towards the younger spectrum. Correct me if I'm wrong, and yet a document is the format that was felt most appropriate to those information to these audience. These documents are long, and some evidence like articles are even longer. On a general note, do you really expect all people to read through everything and understand it? No, in most cases people just see the first few evidence and leave, and have a negative impression on Lupus without checking the accuracy of the data. This can be proven by how many people actually click on the evidence. Look. Second is the use of language. The way the documents speak is very aggressive and suggestive. Vocabulary like totally and incredibly are words of extreme that tend to make things look worse than it is. Also considerably biased. We're often accused of Lupus doing something, but doesn't really have evidence to back it up. We can also see the subtle biases from using negative adjectives like deceitful, and also sentence structure like yet she or not only but. Most claim only provide one-sided evidence and did not show any perspective other than lupus is bad. Font size 12 and Times New Roman are standard education paper formats to make appeal of the paper seems more trusted due to our instinct towards education and factual information, but I could be overanalyzing at this point. Third is that people who contribute to writing these documents are, quote, former friends, commissioners, and other associates of lupus, end quote. Now, I'm not pointing fingers or judging other people's experiences, but there's a reason why they're all former associates of lupus, and based on the document evidence, I think most of them ended off in a sour note. This is rather concerning because a lot of these evidence are actually just people coming off with negative experiences of lupus, and like what Sparker said in his video, when you have a negative feeling about someone, you tend to not say great things about them. Fourth, generally speaking, a lot of the document is just a bunch of he said, she said. Most of them I don't even see evidence backing it up, and if present evidence, it's just one-sided statement and showing private messages, which have a reason why they're called private messages. I generally think some of the things Lupus said are just things we would say to our friends too. And some of the things we say to our friends might sound alarming, but that's exactly why we don't say to all the people around us. Rather just friends we can trust. If we are held accountable with what we say to our closest friends and family, I think all public figures can be accused of something in one of the conversations they had in their DMs. And lastly, I noticed a lot of the account has since been privated. Now, I don't know the reasons. It could be harassment, it could be de-involvement, but whatever it is, you're hiding information from people, which seems odd considering you're making your statement public for a good cause. Again, not pointing fingers. To conclude, if anyone who contributed to this document is watching this video, hi, please recheck your evidence, provide more information and context before writing a claim. Your actions are extremely harmful to an individual since if you don't back up your information with valid sources, it's not a valid claim. But showing these invalid claims to public, you're creating a negative image of a person who worked with passion and time to build up this career. And also in law, it's called defamation. Serious issues. You might want to look that up. Here are my two statements. If the intent of the document is really what it says, and experiences of people provided are true that Lupus purposely harmed you as an individual, and I am in any ways minimizing the damage done and the experience of it, 本当ごめんなさい,真受不합니다,真的对不起, you have my sincerest apology. But if the intent was an act of revenge or irrational anger and frustration, and based on the current evidence is what it looks like, please get professional help if you need to. Move on and do something more productive. You know, there's a Chinese saying, you can lie to everyone, but you can't lie to yourself. You know who you are, and if you're doing anything unjust, you can't hide that fact from yourself. Second, to Lupus. I want to hope that you didn't do anything listed in the document, but there just isn't answers. The religion shells of yours can't protect you forever. You can't use religion as a shield towards what you need to face. Stop going around the topic and not addressing the problem. Stop saying it's untrue and prove that it's untrue. Provide counter-arguments, give context, and if necessary, apologize for what you have done in the past if you have done anything wrong in the past. It's not hard to say sorry if it comes from the heart. And if you truly believe your religion, then I beg you, make another video addressing your problems and admitting any mistake you may or may not have done. It's not too late. You have such amazing works and don't let your ego get the best of it. Based on your message, I can see you're not a bad person. But when you're a public figure, you need to think before you do something or type something to anyone. And I believe you had the best intention, but in their perspective, people are sensitive and you should accept it. I get it. I get what you mean. Trust me on that. But people don't always take your word for granted. You need to be aware of that. You can have your own opinion, but always remember to treat people equally. Third, to my fellow content creators, drama is something that happens a lot online. And yeah, they get a lot of attention. Making videos about these dramas is certainly profitable, and there's nothing wrong with that. But please, if you present this information to the public, do thorough research and think critically of the situation. See in multiple perspectives and try to separate your emotional factor away from the situation. You as a content creator has so much influence on your audience. Please set a good example. And please, whenever you're giving a statement, back them up with reasons. And honestly, pretty disappointed. Most video I came across in this drama is just talking about the summary of the document and presume it is right. And just straight up say certain things is not okay. Well, tell me, why is something not okay? Is it because it has moral problems? Is it because it's bad for the community? Is it because the evidence said so? Value your words more than what they are. And what disappoints me even more is that some content creators went further and gave destructive criticism. Now, even if you have a personal bias against something, destructive criticism is never okay. And for Nani, hey, I like your content. I understand you looked up to the artist and the commission price may seem high. I get it. I'm not even a mediocre artist. But do realize you need to do more research to back up your claims. You feel like something is ... is not enough. And you're setting an example to your audience even if it's not your intention. We're sources of information and entertainment. Let's set a good example while we're making content, shall we? Now to everyone who's sending hate and destructive criticism to Lupus. I ask you, my friend, what makes you different than Lupus? Ironically, you who are sending hate, sending death threats, sending harassment, bullying her, giving destructive criticism, and heck, even harassing other people for doing what they believe is right, tell me, what makes you different from her? I see videos after videos, post after post, criticizing the same point, milking the out of the situation. And to be frank, I'm not in place to say, since I'm also contributing to this show that it is this situation. Anger and frustration is all I hear. Not a single soul thought about, hey, is she doing okay? All I hear is, she deserves it. She brought this to herself. A homophobe doesn't deserve to live. Then tell me, what makes you different? Aren't you also undervaluing another person's life? Aren't you disrespecting other people too? If you truly despise what she does, just isn't an unfollow or a block enough for you? Maybe even an awareness statement, but why is a hate message necessary? Earlier on, the document presented a study about mental health and harassment of homosexual people. Then, does that not apply on other people too? It pains me. It honestly pains me and disgusts me how people act almighty, thinking they have the moral high ground so they can just do whatever they want. In reality, they're just continuing a circle of hate that will never stop. Just tell me, people. Tell me, why aren't you just trying to understand each other? Can't we all just figure things out peacefully without hurting other people? You're just lowering yourself to the same level. Remember, to treat people like how you want to be treated. It doesn't matter if they don't treat you nicely. Treat them equally, and treat those who treat you better even better. Revenge is meaningless other than feeding that ego of yours. We all make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. What's important is you learn from that mistake and thrive through it. And unfortunately, people miss that point. They don't give people chances to fix that problem, and rather destroying it even more. Scrapping it to pieces and hope for someone to actually rebuild it. I am really sorry that the start of this channel has to be this boring long video about a drama. I was wishing to create a more creative and entertainment content like music covers and animation, but the problem calls to me. It breaks my heart that no one's saying any other opinion. I guess it's the internet, it's so easy to jump in the rabbit hole of hate, and I want to stop that. People need to realize it's damaging to all communities, giving bad reputation and connotations. Heck, I can emphasize some of the points Lupus said. The fact that someone can make a video saying how terrible and transphobic of a person Lupus is, and still will get tons of support, is rather ridiculous considering I'm writing a whole document that took me almost a week or so, full of logical analysis and evidence, and just trying to use as much facts and common sense as possible, and I can still get hate and or seen as a transphobic Lupus supporter. I can't emphasize that, and unfortunately, all communities has bad apples, and they just tend to pop out more than the good ones. However, even in the darkest corner of the room, there's still a glimmer of light that will still reach towards it, and even with the overwhelming negativity that is flowing around the place, there are still people willing to stand out and fight it. People who give constructive criticism, people who called out the wrong behaviors, people who bravely stood out and stated their different opinions. Thank you, from the bottom of my heart. Hopefully this video brought you some perspective and insights. We're in a world where it's much easier to hate than anything else. Hate blinds our eyes from seeing different things. It fixates us to see everything negatively. In a world like this, I hope everyone realizes rather than hate, we should try to understand, try to help, try to forgive, try to let go of that negativity with your heart, and rather than create more problem, we should try to make solutions. Use it to make a better community, make a more welcoming online space, make the world a more positive and a more enjoyable place to stay in. Wouldn't it be nice if we can all just get along?
Don't now, see, he won't answer me because you already know what the insight was. See, yes you do. He won't answer me. He wants me to say it, damn it.